open.
Tonight's story is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of introduction.
Police gone off! Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
And this is?
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Houston, we have a problem.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Now, where was I?
Welcome to episode 127 of the Blokebusters podcast. I'm Paul, and today we're going to be talking about Pixar. Yep, Pixar. The entirety of Pixar. Because why would I make it easy on myself? However, to do so, I have got a couple of people in from a lovely podcast called Defining Disney Podcast. It's Caroline and Nicole. How are you guys doing?
Hello. We're good.
Doing good. Having a ball.
Excited to be talking about something outside of the main canon.
Yeah. This is outside our current scope of our main show, so we get to talk about something new.
Yes, but not too far out. I don't want to, stretch you too thin. But yes, so first things first, gonna get all the boring stuff out of the way that everyone hates listening to. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Blokebusters. You can go to blokebusters.com if you want to look at a lovely little website that I put together. You can email us, theblokes@blokebusters.com, if you want to give us a really long form letter about how boring we are. Or you can, if you want to help us just keep going, we do have a Patreon, Blokebusters, shocker, and even just $1 a month would help just, pay a little bit of the server cost. Yay! But there we go. That's all that stuff that no one cares about out of the way. And let's get into it. So, yes, basically for this, I decided that trying to pick from the Pixar entire canon is just a little bit too difficult because there are so many films that we can go into detail about. So I thought, let's not do that at all and just kind of do a good free-form discussion about Pixar as a whole. So my first question then to both of you would be, to the best of your recollection, what was the first Pixar film you guys saw?
Toy Story.
So, yeah, Toy Story was actually my first film in theaters. I was a grand total of 2 years old. But I very clearly remember seeing that movie in theaters.
Okay. I mean, I could imagine to a 2-year-old it might be a little bit frightening.
I don't remember running screaming out of the theater like I do with some of the 3D shows that were at Disney World back in that era. Very, very clear memories of running screaming out of Honey, I Shrunk the Audience 3D and It's Tough to Be a Bug at Animal Kingdom in the early days of those shows. And I was even older in those because Animal Kingdom didn't open until I was 5.
So yes, you'd basically just developed your fight or flight response at that
exactly.
point.
Yeah, Pixar has shaped the development of many a child in our generation. We are both products of the 90s, so Pixar was an integral piece of that, and we're also obviously very Disney-centric in our world, so Pixar was one of those collaborations that just made total sense. I don't remember going to theaters for Toy Story, but I definitely remember owning it on VHS in the 90s and watching it over and over and over again. When I look back on it, it was definitely a movie that was probably geared a little bit more towards boys just because of our main characters, very boy-centric, very much the development that Andy goes through and, him choosing his favorite toys and going through that struggle. But I really enjoyed it as a kid. And then I also really strongly remember A Bug's Life when it came out, because it was like, oh, the same people that are doing Toy Story are doing A Bug's Life. I'm really interested in this as a child. But I was, and I remember definitely going to see A Bug's Life in theaters. I'm sure I saw Toy Story in theaters because I was, I think, 5 or 6 when it came out. But I absolutely remember watching it on VHS a whole lot. My family had the Disney Masterpiece Collection, and my dad and I would argue over whose Masterpiece Collection it was, because he might have spent the money on it, but emotionally it was mine, because I was the child.
Who watched it.
I was the one that watched it over and over and over again and got all the value out of spending that money.
Yeah, I feel like when my daughter grows up, we're going to be the same with that, because I definitely do feel ownership over some of the things that we watch, even though we watch it together. But yes, let's see, I would have been 8 when Toy Story first came out. I don't know how close it came out in England as over here, because I know that sometimes they're staggered. They're definitely pretty much same day now, but I think back then they were at least a week or so apart. But yeah, I think I would have been taken to see Toy Story and pretty much every other Pixar film up to a certain point. I've been trying to think where the cutoff was, because I know I saw Finding Nemo in the cinema. I know I saw The Incredibles in the cinema. I definitely saw like Ratatouille, Wall-E, Up, and those. But I don't remember when like it went from me being taken to see it to me choosing to go and see it in the cinema. I can make an educated guess.
I know my cutoff.
I know mine.
Cars. That was the last time we were taken to see a Pixar movie, and I actually missed Ratatouille in theaters.
Okay.
I don't know why. It just, we missed it that year. Apparently, that might have been, we might have been on vacation when it came out, and then too focused on summer schoolwork, because I had a lot of that when I was in middle school. And then I remember choosing to go see Wall-E, and that was one of my first movies, like sitting by my quote unquote by myself in the theater. Really, my parents were like 4 or 5 rows back, but I got to sit with my friends like up closer, separately from them, because that was what you did when you were a teenager having an independence crisis.
Wouldn't know, always went to go see Disney movies and Pixar movies with my family. That was a thing for us. We didn't actually go to theaters very often for anything else. Disney was basically it for us. So the first Pixar film that I went to independently without... No, I might have gone with my parents anyway, but I was over 18, was Toy Story 3 in 2010. I was actually working for Disney at the time, and they were doing a whole lot of cast premieres and things like that on top of it. So I definitely went to that one. That was the clear cutoff for me, was I was actually working on my own, working for the company, and seeing that one in theaters. Bawled like a baby, because of course you did. If you did not cry during Toy Story 3, I can't relate to you.
Can't help you.
It was sad. And after you'd been invested in something for so many years, it was a beautiful ending, but, bawled like a bitch.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, my former co-host would happily tell you I have just a heart of ice. Or at least I did before my daughter was born. A little different now, depending on the situation.
That can change a person.
I mean, still, like lots of that stuff still doesn't like get me.
Just wait till she grows up and she's going off to college, and you watch that movie again. You will also bawl like a bitch. I can tell you that because my dad does not cry at movies, and he cried at that movie because I was going off to college the same time that Andy was. That was the summer before my senior year, and I was very close to that threshold of leaving and going off to college, and my parents had like a crisis.
Yeah, I can tell you my daughter was born before Toy Story 4 came out, so like at the end of that one, and in case it isn't obvious at this point, everyone, spoilers for pretty much every Pixar film.
Surprise.
But yes, at the end of Toy Story 4, and I know that film has had its fair share of naysayers and everything, but I actually appreciated the way that they ended that one. I kind of liked the fact that they let Woody go. It's like, the one guy that never would have gone, he finally understands what it means to move on. Even though technically he should have got it at the end of the third one. But anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, that bit at the end where he's finally letting go, is like, oh, okay, like I can see like that hitting people. I can definitely, like, I was thinking back to the third one and kind of getting why that would have hit people hard. But yeah, I was trying to think about it as you guys were talking, like the cutoff for me. I think I can tell you for sure now when the cutoff was, because I know I was taken to see The Incredibles, but I definitely did not go and see Cars. And I can tell you that for a fact because I still have not seen all of Cars.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, my younger sibling was obsessed with Cars growing up. They actually had like Cars themed like bedroom stuff. Like they were into it. But I mean they were also fairly young. I want to say 6 or 7 when Cars came out. So relatively young, definitely within the age range that it was gearing towards or aiming towards. But I personally have only seen Cars 3 once, and I have never seen Cars 2 and have not seen Planes either, because we don't talk about those.
Yeah, Planes is not an official Pixar movie. It is a Disney Toon Studios film, and it can stay that way.
Bad.
I've seen all 3 of the Cars films. Granted, I have also only seen Cars 3 once the whole way through. I've seen it in bits and pieces, just having seen clips and like it having been on when I would visit friends around the recreation areas that I used to work in when I was still living in Orlando. But not Pixar's brightest moment necessarily. I would say, and this is, I have to put the disclaimer out there, the only Pixar film I haven't seen is The Good Dinosaur, and I know it is also down there in terms of not Pixar's best work. But I think that I can still confidently say that Cars 2 was probably their low point.
Yeah, I've heard bad things about Cars 2, definitely. Like I say, I've seen half of Cars, and I haven't seen anything of 2 or 3, outside of the trailer for 3, which made it look awesome. I'll freely admit.
3 was definitely better than 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Not a high bar to clear, necessarily, but it was better. It was an improvement.
Yeah, and I will say I did very recently go to Disney World, and I went to see the Cars show thing that they've got there, and it is quite impressive, actually. Like this.
How recently?
Last month.
Oh.
Yep.
I did not know that they were running the Cars show again already.
Yeah. And obviously this will date this exactly, but yeah, it's basically the way that the benches are. For those who remember, every other bench is blocked off, and then there's enough room for 2 or 3 parties, depending on the size of the parties per bench that is open. So yeah, obviously it's not wide open to everyone. So yeah, queues can be a bit long, but no, it was good, even for someone that has not really gotten into the Cars canon. I know the characters enough that I got the majority of it, and I have gleaned enough of the story, even though I've not seen the films, that I was able to follow what was going on, and it's just a very good show. But I was very impressed with the technology that they had there, because when I heard it was there, and it was something that we would be able to do with my daughter when we were all there, I was like, well, kind of got to try it. and I would say it was worth the wait while we were there, but we only waited for about 20 minutes. So
yeah, park capacity is still pretty limited from my understanding.
Yeah.
Yes, it is 35% at this point, which still being at 35% capacity in Magic Kingdom, some of the ride wait times were in excess of 70 minutes.
Wow.
So,
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
I do not miss those queues, man. I really don't.
And of course, they did get rid of Fast Pass, but they had just brought them back, but also not really.
It's like
it was
super
very
limited, right?
Yeah, like really limited, and also like you couldn't get them on the days. Basically, you had to be a Disney Vacation Club member to even stand a chance of getting any of them, and only some of the rides had them, and even so, they weren't handing many out. So like there was basically no point in even trying.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, back to Pixar. But yeah, okay, so obviously you mentioned that you haven't seen The Good Dinosaur, and everyone now knows I haven't seen any of the Cars film. What about you, Nicole? Have you seen all of the Pixar films? Are there any that have passed you by?
I didn't see Good Dinosaur. That was the only one that I had missed other than Cars 2. Good Dinosaur's on Disney Plus, but since it doesn't get a whole lot of fanfare, I just haven't gotten around to watching it. It's funny because I was actually watching a bunch of, not technically watching, my two dogs like watching movies while my husband and I are working from home. So a lot of times we just turn on Disney Plus and just let movies run all day. It's like having perpetual toddlers, but like one of them literally sits on my couch and watches TV. Like, it's insane.
Okay.
But
Sorry to cut you off here then, but this is too easy a plug to pass out. Have you found Bluey yet on Disney Plus?
no.
Put Bluey on and see if your dogs enjoy that. It is a kids television show. It's a cartoon show from Australia.
I've heard really great things about it from all of my parent friends.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it's about like the entire cast of characters in the show are anthropomorphic dogs, and it's the main characters are Bluey and Bingo, who are two girls in this family, and they've got mum and dad, and every single episode there is a different sort of imaginative play game that they play, and all of the parents join in, including all of the neighbors and stuff like it's just everyone just joins in these things. So I feel like your dogs might enjoy that. There are 52 7-minute episodes in the first season, and the second season will be dropping at some point in the next few months.
Oh yeah, my dogs could knock that out in like a couple days. But yeah, other than Good Dinosaur and Cars 2, I've seen all of them, and I've actually watched through most of them recently, or listened in on most of them recently because of my dogs. Actually, I think the last one we watched all the way through was Ratatouille.
Okay.
But that day we had also had Cars on and Inside Out and Soul. So we kind of just hit a bunch. When Disney just starts suggesting additional films, like, I'm down the rabbit hole at that point. I'm like, sure, that looks like a good one to turn on next. And 7 hours later, all I've been doing is sitting in front of my TV, listening to whatever movie's on in front of me, and doing something on my phone or on my laptop or something. Time just disappears. It's scary. It's like a void. It's like a Disney void.
Yeah, pretty much. They are very good at doing that somehow. So, all right then. We should probably figure out what are your favorite Pixar films and why then.
You want to go first or me?
You can go first.
Okay. I kind of go back and forth between WALL-E and Up, personally.
Okay.
That was kind of those were two of my most influential films, particularly in my college years when I was really learning to do film analysis and pick things apart like this. WALL-E, the music for me just sets it apart, and the fact that it accomplishes so much story and character-wise without any dialogue in the first half of the film, like, is bonkers. And the visuals are just absolutely gorgeous. And the Michael Giacchino's soundtrack, Michael Giacchino's Up. Thomas Newman's soundtrack is iconic. You can pick out pretty much any moment of the film just from the soundtrack alone. And then for Up, I mean, Michael Giacchino, come on. His opening, it's called Married Life. Those first opening 9 minutes tell more of a story than some films tell in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And
I love that meme where it is like just a couple of screenshots from that opening, and it's like, now come on, Pixar. I didn't come up to be bowling, okay?
Right. No, the first 10 minutes are definitely some of the most emotionally impactful minutes that Pixar has ever kind of crammed in all together. I would say that Up is also one of my most quoted films, particularly like with my family. We do a lot of Doug and Russell quotes in this house. So, hi, my master made me this collar so that I'm a squirrel. Hi there.
Yeah, there was actually something I saw yesterday that was it was the bit from when they first run into Doug, and it's when they say "speak." Hi there. It's like the biggest twist in Pixar.
Biggest plot twist.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most surprising moments, I think. The cone of shame. I think
I do not like the cone of shame.
Yeah, it's definitely good. I think Up's got some of my favorite bits in it, but probably not my favorite. I think my favorite out of the Pixar films is probably, and it's difficult because I have the one that I probably enjoy watching the most, or rewatching, I guess I should say, the most, which is Finding Nemo. However,
Solid
Monsters
choice.
Inc. I personally think is
Both solid
the
choices.
best Pixar film. I think the characters in Monsters Inc., even like just Mike and Sully, are the best duo that has been on screen in a Pixar film. I mean, you got the epic John Goodman as Sully, just knocks it out of the park, and then Billy Crystal as Mike is just
Hilarious.
so delightfully wound up and high strung, the outtakes again, like probably some of the best outtakes as well in Pixar history, right there.
Yeah,
So,
I love how they animate outtakes for a lot of their earlier films. I think it really adds a lot of character to the movie as a whole.
yeah, and I think to tangent here before we do get back to Nicole to find her answer to the question, but I think my favorite singular outtake, and because I mean obviously you've got things that felt like actual outtakes in the beginning, and then you jump cut to the ones that are like clearly just little bits that they've decided to put in, and then right when it was on that transition, the first time I felt it was incredibly obvious that they'd written this for something and are really just having fun with it, is one from Toy Story 2, when you've got Flick and the caterpillar.
Well, it's not a Bug Life 2.
Yeah, just like, it's a 2 movie, but it's not a Bug Life 2. Well, I mean, what do you mean? And then, Buzz cutting through. It was, I think that's probably my favorite, just little outtake in quotation marks. But yes, so Nicole, what is your favorite Pixar film?
So I do have to say that the Mike and Sully chemistry in Monsters, Inc. is unmatched. I don't think that there is any pair in the Pixar canon that has better chemistry. I mean, even when you're looking at like Buzz and Woody in Toy Story, Tim Allen and Tom Hanks have great chemistry, but I think that it was so organic and natural for John Goodman and Billy Crystal that it was just perfect. I would say that I would have a really difficult time picking a favorite for Pixar, just because for whatever reason I really enjoyed Pixar movies a lot more in my preteens and teen years, because that's really when Pixar was like really ramping up, doing movies every 1 or 2 years. My younger sibling was really into them also. I would say though, if I were to have to pick right now, I would say the original Incredibles. And
I mean, yeah, the best Fantastic Four film that's ever been made, right there.
right. That we're ever probably ever gonna get. I absolutely adore everything about it. I think the soundtrack is so perfect. I don't think you could have possibly made it any better. Because it really embraced that classic superhero theme, the 1960s aesthetic. Edna mode, like, you have got to be kidding me, icon. The Syndrome as the villain is perfection. When
another widely quoted movie.
Widely quoted movie. And then, also seeing things like superheroes adjusting to real life, Bob Parr being in an office environment after spending all this time as a superhero, some of the most relatable content as an office worker in my life. So I've only come to appreciate it more as an adult. Just everything about it.
Yeah, and some of the things that they were able to sneak in as well, especially I'm gonna guess you've seen the Jack Attack short.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the bit when Syndrome turns up and he's saying like, "This the S stands for sitter. I was gonna have babysitter, but then you'd have BS, and you can't have that."
And Kari's just sitting there like deadpanning.
Yeah, my favorite fan theory from most of Pixar actually comes from that, which is that Kari, even though she has a memory wiped, it doesn't fully go away, and she ends up training Phil Coulson for S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's funny.
Oh yeah, I could buy that. Headcanon accepted. I'm okay with accepting headcanon like that. I also have to give honorable mention though to Ratatouille, because I think that that's a wonderful film, and then also if I'm pulling from the recent films, Coco. Because Coco, oh my god,
a very special place in our hearts. And also just we've seen it so many times. So our niece, and I say our because she's not technically blood related to us, but there is a third best friend in this circle, and her daughter, her name is Gemma. When she was young, the only thing that would calm her down when she was crying hysterically was if you would put on Coco for her. She would drop everything and just sit there and stare at the screen. Absolutely fascinated. That is the movie that she learned to dance to. Her first video of her dancing is to...
was it Un Poco Loco?
Yeah, Un Poco Loco. And so she is... That movie will forever hold a special place in our hearts because of her and the way that she just absolutely obsessed over that movie when she was tiny. Mm-hmm. and even still today, it's one of the few things that will get her to completely calm down. Like I've been in the car with the three of them, with her and her parents, and the two things that they can put on, because she hates being in the car, hates it. Two things they can put on are the Coco soundtrack and the Critical Role theme song, and those are the only things that will get her to stop crying in the car.
Well,
it's magical. Like, I have video of it happening, just like her completely like bawling, wailing, hysterical, and then the song comes on and she like shuts down,
like flips a switch, and she's fine until it's over, and then we normally take up our
back to screaming again.
Yeah, we're back to screaming.
Now here's the thing: have they tried the D&D Beyond song as well? I feel like they should try that. If she's into the Critical Role theme tune, I think the D&D Beyond one would be a
That's
good
entirely
shout.
possible. I don't know if they've tried that one, but I mean, she grew in the womb to the sounds of Matt Mercer and Critical Role cast. That was really when Kate and Rory dove deep into D&D, and so she knows Matt's voice and like has pointed to the TV and said Matt.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, they should just play a whole bunch of Overwatch.
Gosh.
Just keep doing that. Yeah, no, that's interesting. All right.
Talking about Coco and the music kind of leads me into one of the really big things about Pixar for me is the music. I mentioned, Thomas Newman and Michael Giacchino in terms of WALL-E and Up, but like Michael Giacchino also did the Incredibles soundtrack, which, as Nicole mentioned, is iconic. It's incredible to continue punning off of things because that's what I do.
Yeah, and obviously, like, even though those soundtracks are, objectifiably the better ones, there's no doubt which one is the most famous, the most iconic when it comes to Pixar, and that would be your man Randy Newman.
Oh,
there's
I mean, there's a reason he's won many Oscars for his work for film. And the reason he was pretty much the exclusive Pixar composer for the first
6 years.
First 6 years of their studio, yeah, or longer, because I don't know if he scored their shorts as well.
Entirely possible. Yeah, and then they got Thomas Newman to do Finding Nemo. So, fun thing that I actually did not know until today, that Thomas Newman scored The Shawshank Redemption, which is my favorite film of all time.
Yeah, certainly a wide variety there between Shawshank Redemption and Finding Nemo.
Yeah, yeah.
But both iconic scores, so it tracks.
Yeah, definitely.
We've found iconic score directors and producers and creators all over the Disney canon, and we're like, wow, why is this music so great? Probably the best one that we've done so far is Atlantis from the original canon. It's James Newton Howard, and if you're not familiar with James Newton Howard, yes you are. You know his music, you just don't know his name.
You do.
I promise you know him. And it's amazing the talent that they can bring in for soundtracks, and if you have a good composer for your soundtracks, how much of an impact that has on a film. There's a TikTok trend that's going around of, tell me a scene from a movie that would have been better if you had replaced the song that was in the background. Just kind of symbolizing that necessity of good music behind a given scene and what makes an iconic scene so great. Obviously we've all got our opinions, but really at the heart of the matter, it's, if you have a good composer to give you that heartbeat behind what you're seeing on film, it really elevates what you've got on screen.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and actually, I was gonna say, have you guys touched on Tarzan yet?
We've
Not
not
yet. I'm very excited to cover Tarzan, but
we have covered Brother Bear, which is the other Disney film that Phil Collins composed for, and that is also just some real quality work. Not as iconic or well known, certainly, probably just because of how well the films did compared to each other. Tarzan was, a smash, and Brother Bear was a drop in the bucket. But no, Phil Collins' work on both Disney films that he's done work for has been absolutely incredible. He didn't have to go that hard for us, but he did.
And we are grateful for that every day.
We're so grateful.
Yes, absolutely. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed music-wise, and you can probably guess just based on where I'm from, but the music in Brave, I thought, was just some of the nicest to listen to. I really enjoy the Celtic music, especially in the opening when Merida is riding off on the horse. That song might be my favorite song in all of Pixar, actually.
High praise. It's definitely up there for me. I have a lot of Scotch-Irish heritage, Celtic heritage, and so does my husband. And so that film it's really enjoyable for us because we feel so connected to that piece of our heritage, and we really want to explore that landscape further someday. I have gotten to go, but he has not, and it's been a long time. It's been 11 years since I was in the UK, so we really get a kick out of Brave and enjoy all of the gorgeous landscape shots and the Celtic music, and just altogether a beautiful film.
Yeah, I growing up in England, I have been to Scotland that I can remember one time.
Really?
Yeah, and I was definitely too young to appreciate the fact that I was in the heart of Scotland, because we went up. It was my family and another family. We went up and stayed in a house that I believe belonged to someone in the family of the other family, and so we were up there for about a week. I think I might be wrong on that, but I feel like it was about that long. And my main memory of that time, and it wasn't until I was thinking it through about a year ago that I realized how odd it was. It was myself, and I was about 13, 14 at the time, my dad and the dad from the family that we went. We cycled from the house to a pub that was about 40 minutes cycle away. And so, we got there. I played a little bit of pool there. My dad and the other dad had something to drink. I had a Diet Coke, or whatever. And then we put the bikes on the car and drove back. And it wasn't until I was thinking about that recently that I was like, I think that was done in the wrong order. And I'm sure that one of the two of them stopped at the 1 pint. But I didn't really think about it at the time.
Well, it's funny you say that. So I spent a week in Scotland when I was in high school. My high school theater program was invited to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival as part of a delegation from the American High School Theater Festival. And
Lucky.
So I got to spend a week in London. I did a workshop at the Globe and got to go to some cool museums. We stayed at the University of London. And then we took a train, if I remember correctly, to Edinburgh and stayed at the University of Edinburgh for a week and got to busk on the Royal Mile and do 3 performances. The show we did that year was Sweeney Todd, which of course is a 2-hour plus show. But if you're going to be in the Fringe Festival, your show is 90 minutes. You get 15 minutes on either side to set up and tear down, and then there is someone else in your venue on the dot right after you. So we had to cut a lot out of that show. It was a process for sure. And the venue that we were in was also fairly small, and we couldn't transport 8-foot tall set pieces across the Atlantic Ocean. So there was a lot of improvising done, but it was an incredible trip, and I got to climb Arthur's Seat and see a fife and drum show at the castle on the Royal Mile, which the name currently escapes me. But it just an iconic tourist location that it was just really cool to be there, but it was a long time ago and I really want to go back.
Yeah, I sadly had not been to Edinburgh, let alone to the Fringe, which is incredibly annoying to me given I am a huge stand-up comedy fan. Many of my favorite comedians have done their sets at the Fringe. In fact, when you were there at the Fringe, I'm willing to bet any money that one of my most favorite comedians of all time was at that point somewhere else in Edinburgh doing his set at the
It
Fringe.
is entirely possible. I was there summer of 2010.
Yeah, this guy, he pseudo-retired about a year ago, but he had been going for like 18 years before that. So,
Wow.
Yeah, he would have been at the Fringe. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there were a lot of cool shows we saw ads for, and people went to go see that just not everybody had the chance to go to because there was so much happening. So,
yeah, no, it is impossible to see everything.
Yeah, literally every pub, every club, every venue in the entire city pretty much is filled with some either comic or improv or just straight up like theater show for a week straight pretty much. And it's an incredible just celebration of drama and performance art and every different kind of theater you could ever imagine.
Well, yeah, and kind of springboarding off that, I will say, obviously, the films that Pixar put out, they've actually really run the gamut. Like, there's so many different things that they've covered, but I do find it a little bit telling that so far, pretty much every film that we've talked about, that we've enjoyed, or that we've really shone a spotlight on, has been one that wasn't a sequel. So, like, we haven't, like, you mentioned Toy Story 3 and the ending part of that, and I touched on Toy Story 4 a little bit, but we haven't really gone into any detail about where we think the Toy Story films stand, where Incredibles 2 stand, like, and Monsters University as well, because obviously Monsters Inc. was such a huge film, and the joke was when Monsters University and when Incredibles 2 were coming out that even though they were going to be aimed at the young kid market, you were going to be seeing a lot of adults going by themselves to see these films when they came out, because we'd done our waiting 12 years of it in Azkaban. So and yet we haven't really talked about those. So what are your feeling on how Pixar have handled the sequels to these films? Because obviously, I mean, the Toy Story sequels and the Cars sequels, those feel like they were pretty much on the cards when the first films came out. It was like, okay, there's room for more. They clearly set them up, but the other ones, like Monsters University, Finding Dory, and Incredibles 2, how do you think those three are compared to the originals?
I don't think that anything that they were going to be able to put out was going to be the originals or have the same type of emotional impact as the originals. You can always strike gold with a sequel. Occasionally, like with Toy Story 3, I think we're all very much on the same page for Toy Story 3. But I think trying to reliably assume that that's going to happen with any and all sequels is too high of a threshold. However, that said, I do think that out of the three, I would say I enjoyed Monsters University the most, because it was more of a prequel than a sequel. And, even though it came out obviously many years after, it did the world building that we cared about. And it gave us more insight into the relationship between Mike and Sully that we all came to know and love. Earlier I said that Mike and Sully have the best chemistry in probably anything Pixar has put out. And because that prequel focused on that, I think that's where its success lied. I would say that with Finding Dory, it was super cute. I really liked getting more of Dory's origin story. I loved meeting the additional characters. But Dory also went through some major rewrites on their climax and ending, due to some controversy that was going on at the time with animals in captivity. So I think that the film took a hit in that department. And then Incredibles 2, I think, from my perspective, was good. I don't hate it. I love that Elastigirl was able to have her own moment and that we were able to focus on her. I personally would have loved to see them have gone more in the like mutants realm and focus on the kids more. There is that really great scene with Jack when they actually discover his powers, and it's not a secret anymore that, he has these specific powers that we saw in Jack Attack all those years ago, but
Nom Nom Cookie,
like, come on, like, amazing. And then Edna loving him and, wanting to babysit all the time because, like, they form this bond. Absolutely wonderful. So it has some really good high points. I don't think the villain was the antagonist was the antagonist just didn't we didn't have the buy-in on it. It was about a family that we didn't really care about, and like with Syndrome, we met him as a child in the opening sequence, and because of that interaction at the very beginning, when that reveal happened of who Syndrome was, there was that major emotional impact, and you weren't going to get that from this film. So overall, solid sequel. Was never going to live up to the original. But, I mean, I don't think it does a disservice to the franchise. Like, Cars 2.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, I
would also say that Monsters University is what I enjoy the most out of those three. I also just love the music in both of the Monsters films. Since you mentioned the music in the first one, I've been sitting here humming the like drumline theme from Monsters U. It's so catchy, and it will sometimes just like pop into my head unbidden because I enjoy it so much.
Oh, also the mom listening to heavy metal in the van. That's me. That's me in the Monsters world, just by the way. I don't have kids, but, like, that's me. Just, like, a middle-aged person sitting in, like, a moderate-sized, like, minivan or SUV rocking out to metal.
Banging out to
like, just metal. Normal, just every day.
Yeah, you just listen to your tunes.
Exactly, yeah. Just listen to my tunes. Like, the kids can call me old, I don't care. I'm good.
Yeah, no, I really did enjoy what they did with Monsters University. I will freely admit I was hoping that we would get a time skip and somehow bring an adult Boo back in some way. And I'm trying to remember. It's not coming to my mind, but I'm trying to remember something because there was another fan theory out there that Boo grows up to be someone else from the Pixar canon, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it might have been
in Brave.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
And it's like if you think about it, that doesn't make sense. Just because of the bedroom and everything. However,
so the Pixar theory, if you go to the website, actually strangely makes a lot of sense, and I really want to do some bonus content on it at some point on our show. But it's pretty crazy how effortlessly they connect a lot of these films. Some of them are a reach, don't get me wrong, but I think, I'm not sure if they've kept it up over the years, but as of Brave, they had connected all 13 films, which that in and of itself was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting, like how some of these things get written. Now, obviously, every single film they've done has in some way alluded to what the next film's going to be, so there's going to be those organic connections anyway. And then just because of the nature of the technology as they were going through, there's only so many head shapes and things like that, so characters are going to have similar dimensions and stuff, so it'll again be easier to pull one from the other and go, well, this could be this and all that. But it's like I really enjoy looking into that, because the other one I wish I could remember, and maybe you'll you'll have heard this one as well, but it's like there's a theory about which dimension it is that Jack is going into when he phases into the other realm, and it's supposed to be that because of something that some of the other characters in some of the other films are saying or drawing or something like that. Oh no, it is that he floats into the Monsters Inc. Universe because of that bit in the news report where the guy's like, yeah, the kid flew by and shot a laser beam out of his eyes.
Blasted a car with its laser vision. It's true. I saw the whole thing.
There's like, yeah, it could be that he that genuinely did happen, and it's completely unrelated to the fact that Boo was at the restaurant. But yeah, it's I do like how it is quite, especially since all of these films are just centered around all of these weird premises. It's somewhat easy to stick them all together like that. Now I will say, most of these, and Inside Out, I think has popped up once, but a solid study into emotions and how they can control you and how they should.
Definitely, and it's another one of those that has some significant nostalgia factor for both of us, but mostly me. That was the first double date movie that we did with our now husbands, and that was the night that my husband said "I love you" for the first time to me, because I went out. It started absolutely pouring rain while we were standing in line for tickets. And at this particular theater in Disney Springs, you stand in line outside to buy your tickets. And so we very quickly made the decision, okay, Steven's going to stay outside and everybody else run inside and he will come bring the tickets when we're done. So the three of us went inside, and then I felt really bad leaving him out there by himself. So I went to stand out there with him and got just absolutely drenched to the bone, but he still says to this day that's the moment when he realized he was in love with me.
I was gonna say it's a good thing you told the story, because then it's like, so going to see a film about a girl that wants to run away from home because she doesn't feel happiness is what made him realize
No, I think it was all the feelings that were just like associated with that film. Because, like, you were just, like, you were tapped out on feelings.
In your feelings.
At the end of it. Like, even if you're not a crying person, you were just at the end of it, like, oh my god, we've talked about so many feelings and talking about complex emotions. And I would say that Inside Out is a good film for people that are trying to work through complicated emotions, because we have those 5 foundational emotions that they talk about, but as Riley is learning about herself, she's recognizing that emotions are a lot more complicated than those 5 cores. They can be a combination of one, or a combination of 2 or 3 or all of them, and that journey of understanding that emotions are complicated is very important to recognize. And as someone who has gone to therapy for many, many years, in order to understand myself and better myself, that I think is a really important lesson. And it's a very complicated concept to unpack, but I think Disney did a very good job of making it as digestible for the masses as possible, especially for younger children. I think that it's an important thing to represent on film, and being able to understand and unpack those concepts is really critical.
And also, just as a completely random side thing as well, Joy and Bing Bong in the film, very much the Pixar version of Drop Dead Fred. I don't know if you guys have seen that film, but
no, I haven't.
Okay, solid film. Rick Mayall, anyone who has seen anything Rick Mail has done understand like how smart that guy was and he played dumb characters. Like he would like pretty much without fail he played people who have clearly been hit on the head too many times. Do you know who Rick Mail is? Do you recognize the name?
Yes.
I know Rick Mail.
Okay, yeah. So obviously, Blackadder is my go-to, just because Flashheart and Blackadder is kind of what I immediately jumped to because I wasn't, I didn't watch Bottom as much. That was a show that was very popular in England. Obviously, The Young Ones. For anyone that is a fan of old English comedy, like The Young Ones is just the punk the punk era and has so many fantastic bits in it. And then he was also supposed to be Peeves in the Harry Potter film, but his role got cut, and it shouldn't have. However, sadly, his passing would have meant that even if his role hadn't been cut from the first film, we wouldn't have got the epic "Give 'em hell, Peeves" scene.
At least not from him. They may have recast.
Yeah, and I mean, I can understand recasting Dumbledore. I get that works because there's no way you can't recast Dumbledore. But I feel like they would have just cut the character moving forward, and then it just wouldn't have worked. So, but yeah, no, Drop Dead Fred. Rick Mail plays a imaginary friend, and the main character is a woman that had him as an imaginary friend, grew up, forgot about him, and then he come back. And yeah, he pretty much he very much plays the imaginary friend, and like the dynamic there very similar to kind of Joy and Bing Bong. Even the resolution between the two of them in Inside Out, kind of similar. A little similar to the end of Drop Dead Fred. But definitely not the film you want to put on for your 5-year-olds. I think what I know that at least one of you has a history with tabletop role-playing games. So what were your thoughts on Onward? Because that was kind of the biggest tone shift Pixar had done.
Sure, it was really their first like quote unquote fantasy setting, but they grounded it in such a Pixar way that it didn't feel necessarily tonally different to me. I really enjoyed it. We watched it shortly after I moved up here to Virginia last year, sort of as COVID was shutting everything down. Disney decided to go ahead and release it to Disney Plus for free because theaters were starting to shut down. And so we watched it here at home. But then my birthday weekend last year, our local drive-in theater was also playing it. And so we got to go to the drive-in and see it, which was a pretty cool experience. And I feel like Onward is the kind of movie that benefits a lot from that kind of environment, because it is an adventure movie, and adventure movies just feel more adventure-y in an outside setting.
Yeah. I unfortunately have not had the pleasure of watching a film at a drive-in. I've wanted to, but there's not really anywhere near where I am that does that. The closest place would be about 2 hours drive away. And given that most drive-thrus don't, at least here, don't seem to play anything until about 7, I don't want to be driving home in pitch black just to see that. Especially since, I have a 4-year-old daughter, so she's not going to sit in the car for 2 hours there, to sit in the car to watch something, to sit in the car to go home.
Yeah, the nice thing with our drive-in and just when we go typically during the summer is that it's nice enough to sit outside. So my dad brings his pickup truck and we put chairs in the bed of the car, so we're able to sit outside and stretch our legs rather than being confined to car seats.
Well, nice for some, I suppose.
Definitely recommend it if you can ever, if you ever end up like on a vacation or something near a drive-in. Like it's a fun novelty activity.
Yeah, that's something, because as far as I know, the nearest drive-in to us is about 2 hours away, right next to a fairly popular like camping spot. So if we enjoyed camping, then maybe that would be something we could do. However, we don't. We
Nicole can relate to that.
Literally same. I want nothing to do with the outdoors.
Yeah, like my in-laws are huge into glamping, which anyone that knows that, it basically means they have an RV that costs more than their house does, and they will take that and just park it on on the spot, and that will be their home away from home for a time. So yeah, like that's what they do. And like, if I absolutely could not get a hotel and just stay in said hotel, then an RV would be an acceptable choice. However, I would not intentionally decide to spend my holiday in one.
Literally so many other things I could do on my holidays. I don't understand glamping people. Caroline is a glamping person. I don't get it. If I'm going away, I might as well be comfortable, because then what's the point of leaving my house if I'm not going to be comfortable? Similar to like people that are like, oh, my husband really wants a boat and wants to like go and do like trips and stuff, and I'm like, if it doesn't have a buffet and a casino, it isn't seaworthy. I just don't get it. Like I'm leaving my house that I pay good money for to go do something else, and I'm like, I can't make that connection of like why I would voluntarily go somewhere else that isn't as comfortable as my own place. Especially if it's within like driving distance or something. Like, you know, if I get on a plane to like go across the ocean, you know, like go to Europe or go to Africa or go to, you know, South America even, like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be staying in a hotel, you know, different types of accommodations, like understandable, but going fucking camping is just not for me.
No, my family's gone camping since I was pretty small. We actually used to go like legit tent camping, but my mom got real tired of that real fast. So we have a camper now in the family, and it currently lives on the river property where my parents are building up by the Potomac. But most of the time, for the last 12 years, we have used it on holiday weekends to go to the lake down at the Virginia-North Carolina border. They, I think, one time brought it all the way to Florida and camped with it at Fort Wilderness at Disney World. I believe that's a thing that happened, and they've taken it lots of other places. My dad's best friend, actually, he and his wife retired to their RV. Technically, it's a camper. It's a fifth wheel. So
I'd rather die.
But I mean, they've been able to travel the country at very low cost, and because their permanent address is in Florida, they pay no state income tax, and it's a very popular choice for a lot of folks who are retiring right now. It's kind of two ends of the spectrum. It's either you retire to your RV or you retire on a cruise ship.
I was gonna say, it sounds like they were Lone Star and barfing it up. But yeah, my in-laws, they are DVC members.
Oh, my parents are that too.
Yeah, they drive their RV from Ohio to Florida at least twice a year. Wow. And they're very well known down there. Like, yeah, my father-in-law has an obscene number of vacation points. He's tried to explain that system to me before. I don't get it.
It's impossible.
DVC is very complicated. Disney went through a lot of overly complicated steps to make DVC not a timeshare, because they wanted it to be better than that, because timeshares are often a scam.
Yeah.
But they ended up just making it really, really complicated.
It's unnecessarily complicated.
yeah, we were waiting to go on the Galaxy's Edge ride together, and so I used part of that time to ask him how it worked, like to get that insight into it, and he was able to walk me through, some of the equivalent costs and some of these things. And even though he went step by step and was giving me the equivalent values and all of this stuff, we reached the end of the conversation and I still couldn't understand how it worked, because based on everything he told me, it sounded like he still paid more money up front than he would have paid if he'd just gone on holiday anyway.
It depends on where you go.
Yeah,
he
gave me, like, he was telling me how much he spent on some of the points before, how much they are now, like what they're the equivalent of, and like I think I need to see it all written down, and like just see the flow chart and be able to work out my own maths for it, because
there are people whose job it is at Disney World to do that specific job. They only work with DVC sales.
Yep, and he has talked to many of those people over the years.
So when I was in a queue for Peter Pan when I was a child, I decided to count to 1,000. That would be a better use of your time.
Did you make it to 1,000?
I did. Peter Pan's a long queue, man.
Yeah, I took my daughter on the Peter Pan ride. I think we were waiting in that for, I think it was about a 25-minute wait. When
That's
we were
really
there.
good.
Yeah, generally Peter Pan is an hour plus without breaking a sweat. Like when they're full capacity, not COVID and stuff. Yeah, but I counted to 1,000 and then I hit 1,000 and I was like,
what do I do now?
Okay, I guess I'm done. But luckily we were close. But yeah, it was that's still a better use of your time than trying to understand DVC. And my grandfather bought into DVC the year that it opened. So like I say that from a realm of experience. It's very complicated.
Now, granted, that queue is a lot better than it used to be when we were kids. It's like very interactive now. You can interact with Tinkerbell as your shadow on the wall in the nursery as you walk through the queue. But I've only done it once.
Oh yeah, no, we didn't have any of that in the 90s. It was just those shield-looking things, I think it was, or maybe it was supposed to be sails on a ship. I can't remember, but yeah, there was nothing to do in queue. Virtual queues and like interactive queues and stuff, like they didn't give a damn about us in the 90s. They were like, you're gonna sit in this line and you're gonna like it because you're gonna get on this ride. And I can't tell you how many fucking queues we stood in when we did summer vacations at Disney World in the 90s. My parents lost many hours of their life in the Dumbo queue for me to go ride Dumbo for like a minute and a half, just for me to turn around and go, let's do that again. So we just turn around and sit in the Dumbo queue again.
Because I have a daughter, I ended up going on the one ride I promised myself I would never ever ride on again.
Small World?
And it's a small world, yep. Now, luckily, the time we went on it, either my hearing has gotten that much worse, or the sound system was not working as loud as it should have been. So it was fairly muted throughout the entire thing. So it was basically, imagine if someone was listening to Shrek in the other room, and you get that "Welcome to June" like that. That was the level that I could hear the music. So it was manageable. And now I will never go on that ride again. I'm not doing it.
It's a tough sell. It is a tough sell for people.
I understand the premise behind it. I don't understand why people choose to ride it.
I liked it as a kid, especially since like
I always hated it.
Especially since like you get like exposure to like, and I really liked learning about history and I liked learning about other cultures. So like seeing all of that and like seeing people's interpretations, obviously there's some appropriation that we can talk about, but like when when we're talking about the things that they did right, I really liked that piece. But like it wasn't one of those rides that we would just do over and over and over again. It was no Dumbo in my mind. But, you know, the music is a choice. It's very much an earworm and for all the wrong reasons. But,
Yeah.
you know, you have to do it. Like, I think it's one of those rides that you have to do in order to gain the experience. If you never go on it again after that, that's totally justifiable. But I think it's one of those that you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough now that I watched Shrek enough times that even if someone tries to get It's a Small World stuck in my head, I get the Duloc song instead.
And you're set.
So,
you're okay. That'll be stuck in your head instead, which is an amazing parody.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that. Also, the only way song gets stuck in my head is if I don't know the words, and I know all the words to the Duloc song, so...
you just sing through it and then you're good.
Pretty much, I don't even need to sing through it. I just know the words.
Wow.
Like, the only reason songs get stuck in my head is because I don't know them all, and so I get stuck on bits of the song because I can't get past it. And actually, speaking of music, the only film that's come out that we haven't even tangentially touched on then would be Soul. So both of you appear to have seen it, since you didn't list it as a film you haven't seen. So what did you guys think of Soul? Because that was even more than Coco. I think that was a real sort of deep dive into like what that culture, and you know, I say that as a as a white man that grew up in England, I have absolutely no concept of the black man in New York type culture, but based on everything I've read and everything that I've heard from people, it seems like it was a film that very much hit to the heart of that. So so what did you guys think of it?
I thought that it was a lot more cerebral in nature than Coco or Inside Out, right? Coco really hit you hard in the feelings, and they were just unapologetic about it. I think that Soul was a lot more cerebral. I definitely felt things at the end of it, don't get me wrong. But I think that it was a lot more cerebral in nature because it is talking about a concept that literally none of us know about, right? It's such the afterlife is such a concept that is, you know, has been debated since the dawn of time. Having this manifestation of the afterlife, especially after, you know, following someone who believes their purpose is music and it's what gives them joy, not being able to use that, essentially like missing their shot before they die and they're supposed to be moving to the great beyond. That is a tough concept to grasp. And I think especially after the year that we had in 2020, you know, putting a spotlight onto something of, you know, don't waste your time doing something that you're settling for. Make sure you're following your passion. For me, that was very exposing for me personally, just because, you know, I luckily have been able to keep my job throughout the pandemic, but it prompted me to make sure that I am giving attention and time and resources to things that I love. So when I do move to the great beyond, whatever is on the other side, if anything, I would not potentially look back and hold regret. And you know, there's a piece of it where Tina Fey's character 22 is, you know, trying to find her own purpose, but purpose doesn't have to be this great grand gesture, you know, being a jazz musician, you know, and being famous. You know, it's the little things. It's enjoying pizza. It's being on walks. It's enjoying petting a cat. You know, it's all of these, what we sometimes see as these small, insignificant things, but combined with your lived experiences gives you that purpose and that joy.
Definitely. I only watched it today. Today was my very first viewing of the movie. I think it was definitely more abstract and more cerebral than something like Inside Out, which deals with, you know, a similar concept of sort of peering inside a phenomena that nobody really knows about and personifying it. I think Inside Out did it more concretely and the one thing we like to talk about in our podcast is the rules that are established of the world in the film, and it did feel like the rules of The Great Before and The Great Beyond were a little more loosely defined than the rules maybe in Inside Out or some other Pixar films. I did enjoy it a lot, and I think that it has so many different layers to the message that it's trying to convey that it speaks differently to different people at different stages of life, or even different people at the same stages of life. You know, I got out of it more the sense of it is not only one thing in life that gives you purpose. Your purpose on this earth is not just this one singular thing that you are meant and destined to do and then it's over. It's a whole depth and breadth of actions and things and relationships that give meaning and joy and purpose to your life. And if you only focus on the one little thing that you think is the one thing you're here for, then you miss out on living your life and on enjoying all of these other things that can bring you joy and meaning. And I think that that's a really important lesson to learn, especially in corporate capitalist culture that values the hustle so much and, you know, puts so much worth and emphasis on your career, especially, you know, growing up in the public education system, particularly in the county where I grew up. I was thinking about my future major, my future career when I was in the 8th grade. And that is really early for a kid to decide what they want to do with their life. And here I am, you know, however many years later, having already gone through like 4 different job fields, and none of them are what I even went to college for. So it's a valuable message to me, and one that I'm glad that Pixar is amplifying, because it reminds me that I'm still doing okay, even though, you know, the one thing that I paid, you know, a pretty penny for to define what I'm good at in life, it's not the only thing I'm good at. It's not the only thing I'm here to do.
And I think to pivot a little bit, but staying within the film itself, I know you mentioned, you know, the representation of the Black experience. I, you know, obviously as someone who is not a person of color, I'm about as white as uncooked chicken. You know, I think from my perspective, I think it's important to have better representation on screen, you know, focusing on characters of color. And I know that Pixar dialed into a lot of Black actors, Black producers, Black writers, Black singers, Black songwriters, making sure that if they were going to portray the experience of Black Americans, that they were going to do it, you know, respectfully and relatably, you know, to make sure that representation was on screen and done well. You know, obviously, again, it's not something that I can speak to on the perspective, or, you know, being able to walk a mile in those shoes at all. But I would say, from my perspective, at least, I like that there is that additional representation. And I think that that's critical. I think that, you know, progress is slow and painful, but if we are getting progress in the right direction with representation, then that's what we're doing right. You know, we're not here to just pat ourselves on the back and say, yay, we're doing it now. No, let's keep that pedal to the metal and let's keep it going. This is a good step. This should be a norm.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think it's important, like you mentioned, that Disney really dialed into having Black cast members and Black crew members throughout the production of this film. Kemp Powers actually co-directed the film and co-wrote the film, and he is the first African-American to do so at Pixar, to direct or write a film for Pixar, which, like, how did it take this long for us to get here? Like, good on Disney and Pixar for doing it, but, like, damn, y'all slow at this. And then the music largely was composed by two white guys, but all of the jazz compositions and arrangements were done by a black musician, John Baptiste, who's recorded with lots of different artists over the years. So glad that he was involved. Wish he would have gotten more credit and more opportunity to be involved.
Yeah. Now, I will say in defense of effectively Nine Inch Nails, the music that they did probably was the best fit for the parts of the film they're in. So obviously the great beyond, the great before, and all the transitions between, they just that sound that Trent Reznor has, just very much
definitely.
Fit that perfectly.
I'm not knocking the music. I think Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did a great job. And, I mean, clearly so did a lot of other people because they're getting award nominations and wins for it.
Yeah.
I just wish that if you're going to center a movie on jazz music, you need to involve more black jazz musicians.
Yep, absolutely. And it's now something that I found interesting about the film when I looked it up. The cast members that surprised me when I found out they were in this, first and foremost, with Richard Ayoade, just because I'm a huge IT Crowd fan.
I love him. He's so funny.
And just to have Moss as one of the Jerrys was fantastic. And then something I did not realize until I looked up the cast is that the voice of Terry is Moana's grandmother.
Yes, Rachel House.
So
she's great.
So, I was like, okay then. Wow. That I would not have put that together.
No, I knew the voice sounded familiar, but I definitely would not have placed it as Rachel House. I knew that it was New Zealand or Maori because I've been there. That's where we went to. That's where we went on our honeymoon. So I've heard that accent a fair amount recently, but could not have placed it as Rachel House. We actually recently released our Moana episode and talk about her a lot. She was really instrumental in releasing Moana in several indigenous language films to the Pacific Islands. So I really like her as a person. She's a quality human being.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I have noticed just as Pixar have gone on is they really seem to be trying. They're really willing to try stuff. I don't know if you guys have been looking into the different shorts and stuff that they've been putting out on Disney Plus. The one that I wish I'd written the name of it down. There's one that they brought out relatively recently where it is about a girl with some kind of developmental disability, heavily hinted at that it's autism, unable to actually communicate, and she is with another boy, and they go out kayaking, and so it's him trying to figure out the best way of calming her down when she's having a hard time and getting that stuff across. And it's I feel like Pixar doing what they've been doing, and then also Disney starting to do the same thing. I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing what's coming next. I haven't seen the trailer for Luca yet. I'm gonna check that out at some point this weekend, and that's gonna be coming out soon. The one thing that I'm genuinely baffled at and unsure as to what they're doing is Lightyear.
Oh, I'm excited about it. Like the big nerds that we are, we heavily dissected all of the announcements at the Disney Plus Investors Day call and press conference that they did late last year. And when the screenshot of the title card of Lightyear was shared among the group, much excitement. Various different feelings, but generally excitement among all of us, I think, was the consensus.
Yeah, my sibling really loved the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command TV show growing up. And,
Well, that was awesome. Fair enough.
I mean, because we lived in the same house, I obviously watched a whole lot of it as well. So I mean, I grew up with the Toy Story extended universe, as it were. Obviously, some cautious optimism because, you know, Tim Allen really made that role his in the movies, and Patrick Warburton really took up that mantle really well for the TV series. So, you know, those are some big shoes to fill. You know, regardless of who you think you are or who you think you've pegged for the right person for Lightyear, those are some big shoes to fill and big personalities that you have to bring to the stage. So I am cautiously optimistic. But, you know, obviously I know that the same level of apprehension that we felt for Monsters University and Finding Dory and Incredibles 2, you know, these other sequels that we've talked about, it's gonna go under the microscope too. Because these are critical franchises, and you know, they're, again, Lightyear is going to be filled with a bunch of grown-ass adults like myself in a theater with no child in hand, because I don't need those kids to see this movie. I'm there for me. Sorry. I'm not sorry about it either. I would say that I'm more cautiously optimistic though. Like, yeah, I don't know why they've decided to do it, but I'm not mad at it.
So I think the important thing to remember with this film in terms of how we think it's going to turn out is that it's not actually about the Buzz Lightyear that we have grown to know and love during the Toy Story films. It is about the human Buzz Lightyear that the toy is based on. And so that gives it some level of separation and some ability for Pixar to kind of play with the character a little bit more and not make him, you know, exactly the same, give him some different personality quirks and traits. And I think that choosing an iconic actor currently in the Disney portfolio, like Chris Evans, which is who they've chosen, is a smart choice, but I think he is going to feel the pressure. Now, granted, in terms of pressure with iconic roles, he has a pretty good track record. But he definitely has some big shoes to fill, as Nicole said.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely knocked it out of the park as Lucas Lee in Scott Pilgrim, so yeah, hopefully he'll do well in this one. But yeah, no, it is interesting that he's gone from Captain America to Captain Buzz Lightyear. Pretty much, he's just gone down the hall and changed his name tag, but that's about it.
He's skipping around in the Disney properties. We'll see him in Star Wars next, I'm sure.
He found that good money in Disney and was like, all right, I can do this.
I can make myself comfortable here a little while.
Yeah, and I had a feeling that yes, you know, this film is set around the human Buzz Lightyear, but I would be shocked if at the end of the film we don't find out that what it is it's a dramatization within the Toy Story universe, and like it kind of zooms out at the end to the toys watching it on TV. Like, or something like that, or like Bonnie's watching it or something.
That would be cute. Like, I could buy that.
And that could be something that they wouldn't even need to have, you know, the voice cast come back. Like, it would just be the way of linking it there. And then, you know, maybe it could even be like a documentary or something in her school, and you just see the thing, and the narrator for the documentary is Tim Allen. Like, so that's I can see that way. I mean, we've been talking for quite a while about a lot of things Pixar here. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on before we kind of wrap things up?
I will say I am excited for Luca, because it is going to be based in the Italian Riviera. I am Italian American, so I'm going to be excited to see that on film. They're also using some Italian actors, Italian producer, Italian director, so they're going to be digging into that area. I am excited for that, and it looks like it's going to be focusing a lot more on those platonic friendships some more. So we're not going to be forced into a love story that nobody asked for, thankfully. But I'm excited for Luca. I'm sad that we're not getting it in theaters because COVID just won't quit. But I definitely will be tuning in when it gets released in June on Disney Plus.
And for anyone that was wondering, the short film I was talking about earlier is called Loop. I had to look that up because I wanted to make sure that I got that out there. As someone that works in the field of developmental disabilities, it is a fantastic portrayal of someone who is a little lower. I mean, she's not even lower functioning. She just is unable to effectively communicate in a way that people expect. It's a fantastic film about not just just having that representation on screen, but also you get to see the neurotypical character actually coming to terms with, okay, this is the sort of thing that works. Okay, how do we do that? And you actually get to see a natural progression of him figuring it out in a way that can kind of teach young people, hey, not everyone is able to talk the way you can, but figure it out, work out a way to do it. So anyone that hasn't seen it, it's only 5 minutes long, something like that. Go check it out.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look.
Caroline, did you have any other final thoughts before we finish up here?
I think that we pretty much touched on everything. I will leave you with what might perhaps be a controversial opinion. Of the four Toy Story movies, the second one is actually my favorite. I think that's the only sequel on this list that comes equal to the original.
Interesting.
It's a good one.
Okay,
the first one will always hold a special place in my heart, just solely for nostalgia reasons. But yeah, I mean, I think if we're gonna be talking about quality sequels, Toy Story 2 is definitely in contention, and Toy Story 3 as well. I mean, Toy Story 4 even, there's the naysayers out there, but it was still an excellent movie. For whatever reason, they were able to strike gold 4 times with the same franchise,
which is incredible.
Incredible. So yeah, I think that's absolutely worthy of praise. If you find yourself looking for any one set of films to really define Pixar, it's going to be the Toy Story films. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I could point to certain films being my favorite, or what I view as the magnum opus, but ultimately when we're looking at foundationally what Pixar was founded on, and when it came to full-length films, and when it comes to its legacy, it's gonna be Toy Story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Toy Story, unless I'm misremembering this fact, is the first feature-length CG film.
I believe that's first, correct.
Yes,
full length.
And I think that's actually what it won its Special Achievement Oscar for in 1995.
Yeah, and it definitely kicked off such a huge field. And I'll kind of leave it on one final thing. Based on everything that has come up as we've been talking, I kind of was circling around this just in my own head before, but it's kind of solidified here. For me, Pixar is the Western equivalent of Studio Ghibli. The themes that they go for, the type of stories that they tell, obviously culturally, very different stories, very different ways of going about it. But for me, it's the same feeling, the same type of thing turn up, the same type of characters, the same focuses that they have. Especially my daughter is a huge fan of My Neighbor Totoro. I've also got she's watched The Cat Returns and Howl's Moving Castle, big fan of that. So I've been seeing those on and off with everything else that she's been watching, and I didn't really realize it until I was starting to put all this together. But I genuinely think that Pixar is the closest America will get to their own Studio Ghibli.
I think that's a fair assessment. Good comparison.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And on that bombshell, to borrow from Top Gear, for any of you Top Gear fans out there, we should probably wrap it up. Definitely kept you guys long enough. So first and foremost, then, obviously, thank you guys for coming on. And if anyone did wish to find your own podcast and your own selves on the interwebs, how would they do so?
You can take it.
So you can find us on pretty much any podcatcher out there. We are Defining Disney Podcast. Our Twitter is at Defining Disney. Our Facebook is Defining Disney Podcast. Our Instagram is at Defining Disney Podcast. And you can find us on all of those platforms. If you're having trouble finding our show, find us on social media. We have links pretty much everywhere. You can also find us at our website, definingdisneypodcast.com, where you can join our email Ohana and have some really cool freebies like our rubric sample, the score-along guide, as well as our sneak peek calendar sent to you in your email for free. And then you can also find us at Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/defining Disney if you would like to support the show. We are trying to upgrade some of our equipment and continue to cover our monthly hosting costs. And you get some really cool bonus stuff from us, early access to bonus episodes, Discord server access if you become a monthly member. We're sending out decals shortly that have a really cool logo on them designed by one of our friends, and lots more to come.
Yeah, just show me up, why don't you? Yeah, no, sadly, because of everything else that's going on, I don't have the time or disposable income to even consider starting to do most of the things you guys just mentioned. But yes, seriously, thank you guys for coming on, and anyone that is still listening after this point, do go check them out. And as I said at the beginning, if you want to get a hold of myself and mention anything about anything that's been said in any of the episodes, again, just search Blokebusters, not Blockbusters, Blokebusters. Make sure you get that right. Google is very picky and will keep telling you, oh, didn't you mean Blockbusters? No, you did not. You meant Blokebusters. Yeah, you'll find us easily enough. Yes, one last time, thank you, Caroline and Nicole, very much for coming on. It was a blast talking Pixar with you guys. And I will be talking to everyone else again real soon. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Hang on a minute, lads. I've got a great idea.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.